Welcome to a Welcome to a journey through the Psalms of Carnage 1nOnly, where pain is not an enemy, but a profound teacher. In these sacred verses, we explore how suffering can be a pathway to spiritual growth. This narrative invites you to embrace your wounds, not as scars of shame, but as doorways to enlightenment. Here, we redefine spiritual growth as an ongoing journey, filled with the transformative power of pain and resilience. Join us as we delve into this unique perspective on suffering and spiritual awakening. In the depths of darkness, we find the light not by escaping, but by embracing our pain. Our wounds speak wisdom, and our scars teach us truth. Through suffering, we discover strength and wholeness, as each crack in our spirit lets divine light pour through. The journey begins by acknowledging sorrow as a vessel carrying wisdom, not something to flee from. It's in the quiet of pain that one is reborn, finding divine purpose within their trials. How do people find light through pain? Listen to those who wear their pain like armor, for in their scars lies the path to healing. Each wound becomes a doorway through which others find their way. In the midnight of addiction, when darkness seems eternal, even poison can transform into divine medicine. Standing in broken places, those who know the deepest depths can guide others back to the light. The journey of the wounded healer is one of transformation, where personal struggles become a source of empathy and guidance. How do people heal others through their own pain? Words are powerful spells we cast upon reality, each syllable a seed of change. Plant them deep in fertile pain, and watch how gardens grow from graves. These verses flow from open veins, not seeking glory, but to show that darkness speaks the same tongue as light. The fool's wisdom echoes in the spaces between lines, where truth vibrates at frequencies only broken hearts can understand. Let our words resonate, bringing healing and hope to those who listen. Vibrate with holy purpose, for they resonate with divine truth. In the valleys of shadow, darkness clings like a second skin, yet the soul hums with divine frequency. True healing comes through feeling and embracing the sacred ache. In weakness, we find power. In brokenness, completion. The universe speaks through pain, teaching us to listen and align our hearts with its sacred rhythm. What brings true healing according to the art of resonance? Look inward to seek answers within your own brokenness. The question, "Who am I and why do I suffer?" is the key to transformation. It's through introspection that one finds divine purpose mirrored in their wounds. The fire of pain ignites mercy and compassion for others who suffer. This path encourages us to embrace our shadows, finding light and guidance within.
All right, learner, welcome to another deep dive. And today you've brought us something pretty unique.
Yeah,
A
definitely.
collection of YouTube video transcripts from a channel called Carnage 1nOnly. And these aren't your typical interviews or lectures or anything like that.
Right.
They're much more raw. They're these introspective expressions through things like lyrics, spoken word, even vlog-style reflection.
Lots of variety, yeah.
Yeah, so our mission together is to kind of wade through all this material and see if we can pull out any insights on things like personal struggle resilience and what seems like maybe the beginnings of a supportive community forming.
Yeah, and how all of that ties together.
Yeah, and ultimately we're hoping to see if we can kind of understand how one person's very intensely personal journey can shine a light on some, universal human experiences that hopefully you, the learner, can connect with.
Absolutely. And I think what struck me right away looking at these sources was just the sheer variety we're talking about. Transcripts with titles like Bruised and Ghosts.
Oh, yeah, very evocative.
Very evocative, right? Metamorphosis, Mirage, hinting at change and transformation. And then you have things like New Addiction confronting like inner turmoil head on and affirmations, acknowledgement, and awakening.
Yeah, like these moments of self-realization.
Exactly. And then even like slices of everyday life with Midnight Snack, contrasted with these deeper reflections in videos titled like Conflicts with Carnage 1nOnly, Davy Doc dug up even melodic mythologic product.
That's a mouthful.
It is right. And then, of course, Ministry Mission Statement, Songs of 1nOnly Servant Practical, and Rewrites Through Ages. It's like this really intimate look into, the inner workings of someone's mind.
Yeah, it's a lot to unpack, for sure.
It is.
So one of the first things that jumped out at me when I was going through this material was this really strong sense of an internal battle, like a conflict within the self.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
You see this a lot in the lyrics of Bruised, with lines talking about war for your minds and feeling like a prisoner of war. It's like such a powerful image. What did you make of that metaphor?
Well, it's interesting because the internal conflict here isn't really presented as a weakness, but almost as like a fundamental part of what it means to be human,
Right.
That war for your minds line. It really suggests this constant back and forth we have with our own thoughts and beliefs. And it makes me think about how often we're actually our own worst critics.
Oh, for sure.
And how recognizing that internal struggle is maybe the first step towards actually, getting a handle on it. And maybe it's less about achieving this state of perfect peace and more about learning to navigate that battlefield that's within us all.
Yeah, I like that, learning to navigate that battlefield.
Yeah.
And kind of going from that sense of struggle, there's this interesting shift toward, taking that pain and trying to use it as fuel for something positive.
Yeah, for growth.
Yeah, in the ministry mission statement, it talks about embracing struggles as a source of strength. And then in Bruised, there's this line about saving lessons, regrets, and pain. It's almost like taking something inherently negative and really trying to squeeze some value out of it,
Yeah.
So what do you think is the power in that kind of reframing, in that shift in perspective?
Well, I think the real power lies in that active choice to save lessons, regrets, and pain, right? It's not just passively acknowledging that sometimes good things can come from bad things, but it's about consciously extracting value from those experiences.
Yeah.
Like, imagine a prospector panning for gold. They have to shift through all the dirt and debris to find those nuggets of wisdom. And I think that's what this is about, that conscious reframing that decision to see pain as a teacher.
Yeah.
That's the key difference between simply enduring hardship and actually growing from it.
I like that, panning for gold. That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
There's also this really strong sense of defiance that comes through in a lot of this material in Bruised. You have lyrics like break walls and keep on building. And then when he talks about the ministry, he really emphasizes resilience as one of the core values.
Right.
It's this idea of not letting yourself be defined or limited by either external limitations or internal setbacks.
Absolutely.
So why do you think that defiant spirit is so important?
Well, it speaks to this fundamental human need to have control over our own lives.
Yeah.
When you see lines like break walls and keep on building, it's not just about being stubborn. It's about actively refusing to be limited by circumstances or expectations, or, consider how easy it is to internalize negative messages, especially, from society.
Oh, yeah.
This
Absolutely.
defiant stance, this pushing back against those things, it's crucial for, maintaining a sense of personal power and the belief that you can overcome obstacles.
Yeah, and I think especially in today's world where everything online feels so curated and polished, one of the things that really struck me about these transcripts was just the raw authenticity and the vulnerability.
Yeah, it's refreshing, isn't it?
It really is, and that actually comes up in the ministry mission statement video as well. He lists authenticity and vulnerability as core values for this community that he wants to create. It's like he wants to make a space where people feel safe to be themselves, without pretense.
Yeah, without those masks.
Yeah, exactly. So what do you think is so powerful about that kind of openness?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head when you talked about the curated online world, in a digital landscape that's often dominated by facades and, perfect images, that raw honesty could be so refreshing and so disarming.
Yeah, it's like a breath of fresh air.
Exactly. It's like, when someone's willing to share their struggles openly, it gives others permission to do the same. It breaks down this illusion of flawless existence and fosters this sense of shared humanity, which I think is so crucial for building trust and meaningful connections.
Yeah, it's like we're all in this together. And going along with that authenticity, there's this strong theme of self-discovery and searching for meaning and purpose. In A Bruised, there's that powerful statement, I am me, no apologies.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the mission statement, there's the idea of guiding people to discover their unique divine purpose. So it's about finding your voice and finding your path in life, what resonates with you about that particular journey.
Well, I think that search for self-discovery is such a core part of what it means to be human. Those moments where we question who we are, what we're meant to do in this world.
Yeah, we all go through that.
Exactly. And that line, I am me and no apologies, it's like this declaration of self-acceptance, which I think is so important for finding your voice and even the concept of a unique divine purpose. It might have spiritual connotations, but at its heart, it speaks to this human desire to feel like our lives have meaning,
Right.
like we have something special to contribute.
Yeah, and it's clear that creative self-expression, especially through music and lyrics, is a really important outlet for Carnage 1nOnly.
Yeah.
The mission statement actually includes creative self-expression as a core value for healing and growth.
Right.
And then in Bruise, there's this image of shedding his ink.
Interesting.
It's like the act of creating is a form of therapy, a way to process and release these emotions.
I see that.
So how do you think that creative process contributes to healing?
Well, that image of shedding his ink, it's so vivid, and it really captures this idea of, getting those internal things out into the world, right?
Yeah.
It could be so powerful to externalize, your inner turmoil or those complex emotions through creative expression, whether that's writing or music or painting, whatever it is.
Right.
It gives you this tangible way to process those feelings, to give them form and maybe even gain some distance from them. It's not just about venting. It's about transforming those experiences into something outside of yourself that you can reflect on and understand and, hopefully ultimately find some release and healing through.
And it's important to note that there are some spiritual elements present throughout these transcripts.
Yes, definitely.
We see references to God and faith, and the mission statement even mentions connection with God as a guiding principle.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not like overly preachy or dogmatic,
Right.
It feels more personal and exploratory. So how do you interpret those spiritual undercurrents?
Well, I think the spiritual element here is presented more as a potential path of healing and purpose, rather than a rigid set of rules or belief.
Okay.
It's like acknowledging that there's this deeper dimension to human experience. Think about how often people in times of struggle turn to something bigger than themselves for comfort or guidance.
Right.
So that idea of connection with God, it seems to be tapping into this innate human longing for meaning and something beyond ourselves. But the tone is very open and individual rather than prescriptive.
Yeah, and one thing that comes through really strongly is this appreciation for community and support in Bruise. There's a real sense of connection with us.
Yeah, with the collective.
Yeah, and the mission statement has this clear focus on fostering community. So why do you think that sense of community is so important, especially when you're facing challenges?
Well, it speaks to that fundamental need to belong and connect with others. Think about how isolating it can feel to go through tough times alone, but knowing that there are other people who understand, who offer support and encouragement, can make a huge difference.
Yeah, for sure.
So that sense of us in the lyrics, combined with the mission statement's emphasis on building community, it highlights the power of shared experience, in validating those struggles and providing a network of strength and hope.
And it's like you're not alone in this,
Exactly.
You don't have to carry it all by yourself.
Right.
The power of language also seems to be a key concept here. In the mission statement, the power of words is actually listed as a core value.
Interesting.
And then in Bruised, he says, I put these rhymes into words just to give us us.
Yeah.
It's like he sees words as this force that can shape reality and bring people together on a deeper level.
Powerful stuff.
Yeah, so what are your thoughts on this emphasis on the power of words?
Well, it's fascinating because it recognizes that language plays this active role in shaping how we see the world and how we connect with each other.
Right.
It's not just about conveying information. It's about building understanding and creating a shared identity, like you said, just to give us us.
Yeah.
Words can inspire, they can comfort, they can even hurt. So this focus on the power of words, it acknowledges that, using language intentionally and thoughtfully can be a powerful tool for building bridges, promoting healing, and even, influencing how we see ourselves.
Yeah, there's this constant theme of self-improvement and growth throughout this material as well. The mission statement lists continuous self-improvement as a core value. And in 1 Practical, there's a message about learning from failures. It's this idea of always evolving, rather than reaching some endpoint and then being done.
Right, it's a journey.
Yeah, so why is that mindset of continuous growth so important, do you think?
Well, it points to what's called a growth mindset. This idea that our abilities and understanding aren't fixed, but they can be developed through hard work and learning.
Okay.
Think about how limiting it can be to believe that we're just stuck with our current limitations. But when you embrace this idea of continuous improvement, it gives you a sense of agency and hope.
Yeah, like you're not defined by your past mistakes.
Exactly. And seeing those failures as opportunities for learning and growth rather than as the end of the world, it's crucial for resilience and for navigating all those inevitable challenges that life throws at us.
Yeah, and ultimately it feels like overcoming adversity is that central theme that ties everything together.
I agree.
It's the final core value that he lists, and the creator's own journey, which we're kind of getting glimpses of through all this material, seems to embody this idea of finding inner strength and pushing through despite facing so many challenges. So how do you think that theme of overcoming adversity resonates with the broader human experience?
Well, overcoming adversity is such a universal part of being human,
Right.
Think about how many stories we tell ourselves, both personally and collectively, that revolve around this idea of struggle and resilience.
Yeah, it's a classic narrative.
It is, and it speaks to our capacity to adapt and to find strength, even when we're faced with, incredible hardship. So the creator's journey here, it's a powerful example. It suggests that while the challenges are a part of life, our response to them, our choice to keep going, that's what shapes our character and our path forward.
Yeah, it's like getting back up, after you've been knocked down.
Exactly. And that message of hope resonates because it reflects something true about the human spirit. We have this incredible ability to overcome.
Now, let's talk a bit more specifically about this ministry idea that he keeps mentioning. The ministry mission statement video really lays out the foundation for it.
Yeah, that's our blueprint.
Yeah, so when you look at the actual mission statement, it says, to foster a community of healing and hope, guiding individuals, especially the youth, to discover their unique divine purpose, embrace their struggles as a source of strength, and find their voice through self-expression and connection with God.
It's quite a statement.
It is. It's pretty comprehensive. So in light of everything we've talked about so far, are there any phrases or elements in there that stand out to you as particularly significant?
Well, I think what strikes me is just how multifaceted it is. It's not just focusing on one aspect of well-being, but it integrates emotional healing, right? Healing and hope, personal development, discover their unique divine purpose, find their voice.
Yeah.
The reframing of adversity with that phrase, embrace their struggles as a source of strength, and then also creative expression and spirituality with connection with God.
Right. It's like hitting all the points.
It is, and that explicit focus on guiding youth is interesting too. It suggests a real desire to impart these lessons and values to the next generation, which, makes sense given everything else we've seen.
Yeah, it's like passing the torch in a way.
Exactly.
And then there's this really interesting detail that he mentions in one of the videos. He talks about a UFO sighting that happened around the same time that he had a dream about starting a ministry.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a bit out there.
It is. It's this very personal and somewhat unexpected detail to include. So how do we even begin to interpret something like that within the context of this whole narrative?
Well, it's definitely a curveball, right? And it could be interpreted in many ways. On a personal level, it might represent this moment of, profound significance for him, like a feeling of being guided towards a particular path.
Yeah, almost like a calling.
Exactly. And it adds this layer of mystical inspiration to the more practical aspects of building a community.
Right.
So whether you take it literally or symbolically, it speaks to a deep sense of purpose, that feels divinely inspired to him. And I think it underscores just how personal this whole journey is and the motivation behind it.
Yeah, it adds a whole other dimension to it.
It does.
So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about the songs of 1nOnly. These are fascinating.
Yeah, they are.
This collection feels like a very personal and poetic exploration of some of those core themes that we've been touching on. So how do you think these The videos, he talks about a UFO sighting that happened around the same time that he had a dream about starting a ministry.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a bit out there.
It is. It's this very personal and somewhat unexpected detail to include. So how do we even begin to interpret something like that within the context of this whole narrative?
Well, it's definitely a curveball, right? And it could be interpreted in many ways. On a personal level, it might represent this moment of profound significance for him, like a feeling of being guided towards a particular path.
Yeah, almost like a calling.
Exactly. And it adds this layer of mystical inspiration to the more practical aspects of building a community.
Right.
So whether you take it literally or symbolically, it speaks to a deep sense of purpose, that feels divinely inspired to him. And I think it underscores just how personal this whole journey is and the motivation behind it.
Yeah, it adds a whole other dimension to it.
It does.
So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about the songs of 1nOnly. These are fascinating.
Yeah, they are.
This collection feels like a very personal and poetic exploration of some of those core themes that we've been touching on. So how do you think these songs really add to our understanding of everything?
Well, they give a powerful emotional resonance to a lot of these ideas that we've been discussing. They take those abstract concepts like pain and healing and purpose and ground them in this really visceral and evocative language.
Okay.
It's one thing to talk about turning pain into purpose in a theoretical sense, but it's another thing entirely to read a poem that actually embodies that transformation on an emotional level.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
And I think that's what these psalms do so well.
For example, there's this recurring idea that pain isn't something to be ashamed of, but rather a path to something greater. In one of the songs it says, "Broken places are not your shame, but doorways through which light enters." That's such a beautiful way to reframe vulnerability.
It is. It's a complete shift in perspective, right?
Yeah.
Instead of seeing our vulnerabilities as flaws or weaknesses that we have to hide, it suggests that they're actually the points where we can experience growth and insight and even connection with others. It challenges that societal pressure to always appear strong and suggests that true strength can be found in embracing those broken parts of ourselves.
Yeah, I love that. And there's this recurring image of the wounded healer, which I find really powerful.
Oh, me too.
He says, "I speak from scars that never fade, yet every mark upon my soul becomes a door through which others find their way." So it's this idea that our own struggles can actually become a source of empathy and guidance for others.
Right. It's like our wounds become these points of connection.
Yeah, exactly. So how powerful is that concept of shared vulnerability?
Well, it's a really profound idea. The wounded healer archetype suggests that our experiences with suffering, they don't disqualify us from helping others. In fact, they actually equip us to connect and support others on a deeper level.
Right, because you've been there.
Exactly. It implies that true understanding and empathy often come from shared vulnerability. It's about recognizing that our scars, they can be a testament to our resilience and a beacon of hope for others who are going through similar things.
And the songs also bring us back to this idea of the power of words. In one line, he says, "Every syllable a seed of change, plant hope in soil of deepest pain."
Yeah, I underlined that one too.
It really reinforces that belief in the transformative potential of language.
Right. It goes beyond simply conveying information. It suggests that words have this power to plant seeds of hope and possibility, even in the darkest of times.
Yeah, and it highlights the intentionality behind his use of language. It's not just self-expression, it's this active force for change and healing.
I agree.
There's also this really beautiful and almost paradoxical idea that you can find truth in pain. In the lines, "Truth vibrates at frequencies that only broken hearts can tune to." What does that tell us about understanding and empathy?
Well, it's this really profound insight. It suggests that maybe it's through those experiences of pain and vulnerability that we actually become more attuned to deeper levels of truth and understanding, both within ourselves and in others.
Okay.
It's like our defenses are lowered, and we become more receptive to those subtle frequencies of human experience. Empathy isn't just about understanding it intellectually. It's about a shared emotional resonance that can be amplified by our own brokenness.
Wow. I like that a lot. And finally, the Kralms touch on this theme of spiritual growth coming from embracing pain. He says, "In this pain, I find my truth. In these wounds, I discover strength." So it's really challenging that traditional idea of a linear, pain-free path to enlightenment,
Absolutely. It presents a much more nuanced view of spiritual growth.
Right.
It's not about avoiding suffering or striving for this perfect state of bliss. It's about finding meaning and strength within our struggles. It suggests that the path to deeper understanding and resilience often involves confronting our pain head-on and discovering those inner resources that we didn't even know we had.
Yeah, and it makes it much more relatable, you know.
It does. It's a more grounded, human-centered approach to spirituality.
Okay, so now let's move on to Sermon Practical. This feels a bit more like a traditional sermon, you know?
A little more direct.
Yeah, but it's still very much filtered through Carnage One Only's personal lens. What were some of the key takeaways you got from this one?
Well, Sermon Practical seems to take a lot of the personal reflections and themes we've been talking about and frame them in a more explicitly spiritual context.
Okay.
He draws on some biblical references like Jeremiah 29:11, which talks about plans for prosperity and hope. And it's interesting how he tries to connect these more traditional messages with the very real challenges that young people face today, in this fast-paced world.
Yeah, it's like bridging the gap between ancient wisdom and modern struggles.
Exactly.
And there's a really strong emphasis on finding your voice and your purpose as being essential for not just surviving, but actually thriving in life.
Absolutely. It's about empowering individuals, especially young people, to actively seek out meaning and direction. It's not about passively waiting for things to happen. It's about taking charge of your life.
And it's not just about, making a living or getting by. It's about finding that deeper sense of fulfillment.
Exactly. And the sermon emphasizes that finding your voice and your purpose, it's not a luxury. It's essential for navigating the challenges of life effectively.
And he also talks about the importance of community and supporting each other.
Yes, that comes up again.
He even references Galatians 6.2 about bearing one another's burdens, so that interconnectedness and keep coming up again and again.
It does, and it reinforces this idea that we're not meant to go through difficult times alone. The sermon highlights the strength and resilience that can be found in collective support, in sharing our struggles and offering encouragement to one another.
Yeah, it's like that African proverb, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
I love that.
And there's a big focus on resilience, on viewing failures as learning opportunities, on practicing gratitude and being present in the moment. It's a very practical, almost step-by-step guide to navigating those ups and downs of life with a more positive and grounded mindset.
Right. It's about building that inner strength, those tools and practices that can help us weather the storms.
So, learner, as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of Carnage One, only it's been quite a journey.
It has.
We've got through some really raw and unconventional material, but it's amazing how all these seemingly disparate pieces, the lyrics, the mission statement, the songs, the sermon, all weave together around these core themes,
Yeah, it's all connected.
Yeah, vulnerability, resilience, creative expression, and that fundamental human search for meaning and purpose.
It's really about the human experience, is it?
It is, and I think it underscores the fact that profound personal growth and the discovery of meaning can happen in the most unexpected places.
Absolutely.
So as we conclude here, what I find so thought-provoking is how one person's very personal and unfiltered journey can resonate so deeply with these universal human experiences. It makes you think about what people are really craving, especially younger generations who are navigating such a complex world these days. Yeah, it's a lot to process.
It is, and I think the most powerful question that we can leave you with, learner, is this: what if we all embraced our own vulnerabilities a little more and shared our stories with more courage and authenticity? What kind of impact could that have on the world?
That's a really good question to ponder.
It is something to think about.
Yeah, thanks for joining us on this deep dive, learner, and we'll catch you next time.
Take care.
words is actually listed as a core value.
Interesting.
And then in Bruce, he says, I put these rhymes into words just to give us us.
Yeah.
It's like he sees words as this force that can shape reality and bring people together on a deeper level.
Powerful stuff.
Yeah, so what are your thoughts on this emphasis on the power of words?
Well, it's fascinating because it recognizes that language plays this active role in shaping how we see the world and how we connect with each other.
Right.
It's not just about conveying information. It's about building understanding and creating a shared identity, like you said, just to give us us.
Yeah.
Words can inspire, they can comfort, they can even hurt. So this focus on the power of words, it acknowledges that, using language intentionally and thoughtfully can be a powerful tool for building bridges, promoting healing, and even, influencing how we see ourselves.
Yeah, there's this constant theme of self-improvement and growth throughout this material as well. The mission statement lists continuous self-improvement as a core value. And in Sue and Practice,